The Las Vegas Raiders just completed their 2026 NFL Draft, and I want to give you my honest, thorough breakdown of every single 10 picks, 5 trades, and a class that I think holds up well when you examine it carefully from top to bottom. Let me walk you through all of it. Pick 1. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana, grade A+. I'll give you the easiest itself. The Raiders have needed a real project, not another short-term solution. Hope build around him for the next decade quarterback. Mendoza is that. Heisman Trophy alignment and accurate at every level of the field. Spaces and hoping receivers find the ball. His stuff, the leadership, the composure, the way he enters a room and raises the standard of everyone in it. This is a player who genuinely embodies the identity this franchise has talked about for years without producing. The A+ is obvious and was never going to be anything else. The Trident-Stokes trade that allowed the Raiders to move back and still land their quarterback only makes this selection better in retrospect. The front office read the board correctly and added value in the process. Round 2. Trident-Stokes, safety, grade B+. I'll be honest that there was some hesitation in my initial reaction when this pick came in. The position felt less immediately impactful than some alternatives, and the name wasn't one of the loudest ones in pre-draft conversation, but the more I've examined this player and the more I've thought about the defensive scheme Rob Leonard is building, the more I like what the Raiders did here. Stokes is a genuinely versatile safety. He can play free, he's excellent in the nickel, and he can move outside when coverage assignments demand it. Multiple evaluators had him as a potential late first-round talent before the draft. I've seen him in mock drafts going at the back end of round 1, which means getting him in round 2 represents real surplus value. The key to understanding this pick is understanding the defensive identity Leonard is constructing. Zone coverage is the foundation. Everything in the scheme and personnel philosophy points toward a zone-era secondary, and Stokes is exactly the kind of center field presence that makes zone defenses work. A safety who reads the field rapidly, processes route combinations efficiently, and consistently finds himself around the football. There's a personnel relationship dimension to this pick that becomes clearer later in the class, and once you understand it, the vision for this secondary starts coming into focus in a way that's genuinely exciting. B+ and honestly trending upward as I continue thinking about it. Round 3, pick 67. Crone Crawford, edge rusher, grade C+. I want to be transparent that my initial grade on this pick was lower, and the Tyree Wilson trade is what adjusted my thinking. Once I understood the full defensive line philosophy, rather than evaluating this selection in isolation, Crawford made significantly more sense as a piece of a larger picture. He can work in a 3-4 alignment. He can function in a 4-3. The versatility gives Leonard genuine flexibility based on down and distance and game situation, rather than having a player who only operates in one scheme context. He came to football late, didn't start playing seriously until his senior year of high school, which means the ceiling on his development is genuinely unknown in ways that pure statistical analysis can't fully capture. The evaluators I trust have compared his projection to Kendrick Falk, and he showed up impressively at the Senior Bowl against legitimate competition. Rob Leonard has a documented track record of developing defensive line talent when he gets the right raw material. Crawford has the raw material. C+ is my honest grade, above average pick with real developmental upside, but it requires the development to materialize. Round 3, pick 91. Trey Zuther, offensive lineman, grade B. This was a trade-back pick. The Raiders moved back and collected an additional third-round selection, then used it here. Zuther may project as a backup rather than an immediate starter at the NFL level, but the value he brings to this specific roster is genuinely important. 4-year starter, high football IQ, technically sound in a way that 4 years of starting experience tends to produce. His PFF pass blocking grade is 96.5, which is among the highest marks ever recorded at the position in the college game. He can play center, guard, or tackle, depending on what the situation requires, which is the kind of versatility that makes a backup lineman genuinely useful rather than a simple roster spot holder. When Raiders scouts went to the Miami-Texas A&M game specifically to watch Zuther compete against Ruben Bain, a player who went in the first round, and came away impressed, that tells you something real about how the organization evaluated his competitive level. Offensive line instability cost this offense significantly last season. Zuther is insurance against that happening again with Fernando Mendoza under center. You hope you don't need the insurance, you're deeply grateful for it when you do. Day 3. Jamin McCoy, cornerback. This is the most complicated pick in the entire class, and I want to handle it with the care it deserves. The talent ceiling on McCoy is not just good, it's genuinely elite. If you watched him play through 2024 before the injury, he was making a legitimate case to be the best cornerback in college football. Not top 10, the best. His ball-hawking instincts, his footwork and man coverage, his ability to locate and attack the football, in a healthy draft, he's a top 10 pick with no real debate about it. The Raiders got him on day 3. That gap between his talent level and where he went is almost entirely explained by a knee surgery he needs, and I have to be honest about what that means. If the procedure doesn't go the way everyone hopes, there is a scenario where McCoy doesn't play professional football again. That is a real risk on the table. It's why he fell this far. But McCoy has said he'll do whatever the Raiders' medical staff recommends. Get the surgery immediately, or wait. His full cooperation is guaranteed. And if he comes through that procedure healthy and reaches the field this season, I believe he becomes the #1 cornerback on this roster immediately. On a team that has been desperately searching for secondary help, a healthy Jamin McCoy is a transformational addition. The upside and the uncertainty are both genuinely extreme, and how this one resolves will have a significant influence on whether this draft class becomes legendary or complicated. Round 4, Mike Washington Jr., running back, Arkansas, grade A. I genuinely could not believe this player was still on the board when the Raiders made this call. If you want lightning to complement Ashton Jeanty's thunder, Washington is exactly that player. 4.3 40. Breakaway straight line speed with enough size to handle between the tackles work when the situation demands it. The specific problem a Washington Jeanty backfield creates for opposing defenses is that you can't solve both of them with the same defensive approach. Loading the box to stop Jeanty creates space for Washington to take it the distance. Providing safety help to account for Washington opens the box for Jeanty's power running. Both backs scare the defense in completely different ways, and neither defensive adjustment handles both threats simultaneously. There are legitimate developmental areas. Pass protection needs real work, and ball security has been a concern that has to be addressed, but the physical tools are special, the zone gap feel is natural, and the offensive system he's coming from at Arkansas runs concepts similar to what Kubiak deploys here. The transition should feel intuitive. This pick was tremendous day 3 value and one of the best selections in the entire class. Round 5, pick 150, Dalton Johnson, safety cornerback, Arizona. Grade B. Here is the detail that immediately elevated this pick in my evaluation. Dalton Johnson and Tridon Stokes are best friends. They played together at Arizona. They know each other's tendencies. Their communication patterns are already established, and they've played alongside each other long enough to have genuine intuitive understanding of how each operates in coverage. In Rob Leonard's zone scheme, where the back end constantly has to communicate coverage responsibilities, pass-off assignments, and rotation adjustments in real time, that kind of pre-existing chemistry has concrete functional value that you cannot manufacture through training camp alone. Johnson isn't the most explosive athlete in this class. He was ranked around 192nd overall on comprehensive big boards, and the Raiders paid a premium moving up to get him at 150. But turn on his tape, and the thing that stands out immediately is football intelligence. He's consistently around the ball. He understands his zone responsibilities at a level that routinely surprises offenses who expect to exploit him. He's played box safety, nickel, and outside corner, which means Leonard has genuine flexibility in how he uses him. The secondary vision is becoming clear. Stokes as the center field free safety reading the field from depth, Johnson sliding into the nickel or the box depending on the matchup. Zone coverage with two players who naturally communicate and complement each other. That's a secondary being built thoughtfully rather than assembled by necessity. Round 5, pick 175. Zeke Massey's, cornerback, Cal. Grade B. The biographical arc here is genuinely compelling, and I find myself more interested in players whose careers have this specific shape. 3 years at FIU where evaluators doubted him. He performed and proved them wrong. Then he transferred to Cal, where evaluators doubted him again given the jump in competition level. He performed and proved them wrong again. There's a pattern here that tells you something important about competitive character. This is a player who has been consistently underestimated and has consistently responded by performing at the level required. He runs a 4.46 40, which is legitimate starting corner speed at the NFL level rather than coverage-only speed that gets exposed in certain matchups. 7 pass breakups and 4 interceptions across his college career. Not perfect. He can be grabby in coverage in ways that will draw flags at the professional level, and he isn't dominant against the deep ball. But for 5th-round value, getting a corner who can contribute in Leonard's zone scheme and compete for a nickel rotation spot is a solid outcome. He has the chip on his shoulder and the performance history to suggest the work ethic is real. Round 6, pick 195. Malik Benson, wide receiver, grade B+. Tom's big board had Benson ranked 105th overall. The Raiders got him at pick 195. That gap between evaluation and where he landed is about as clean a value calculation as you find in any draft, and the fit with Fernando Mendoza is something I want to specifically highlight because it's the most exciting pairing in this entire class. Benson runs a 4.37 40. He had 6 touchdowns last season, and 5 of those 6 came on plays of more than 40 yards, 5 out of 6. Think about what that number actually describes. This is a player whose primary contribution mode is changing the trajectory of drives and games with single plays that travel the full length of the field. In a Kubiak-influenced offense built around running the football, controlling the clock, and managing game scripts, having a receiver who forces safeties to respect him vertically before the snap is enormously valuable regardless of his target volume. He keeps the box lighter than it would be without him. He keeps safeties from committing downhill on run plays. He creates the downstream spacing effects that allow everything else the offense is trying to do to function more efficiently, and Mendoza can put the ball in the trajectory windows that a deep threat has to track and find. That specific combination of a quarterback who layers throws and a receiver with the ball tracking ability to find and adjust to them creates something genuinely exciting on a per-play basis. Round 7, pick 229. Brandon Cleveland, defensive tackle, NC State, grade B+. Final pick of the draft, and an honest surprise in the best way. 6'4", 315 pounds, 4 years of starting experience with the Wolfpack, 35 tackles, and 2 sacks in his final season. He isn't going to be a featured pass rusher generating flashy statistics. That's not what he is, and not what the pick was for. What Cleveland does is anchor. He eats space. He holds his assigned gap without getting moved. He occupies offensive linemen so that the players around him have cleaner paths to the quarterback and the ball carrier. The line of scrimmage is decided in inches in professional football, and Cleveland doesn't concede inches. Finding a player with this physical profile, this much starting experience, and this specific functional value on the final pick of the draft is a legitimately good outcome. Closing a draft with a B+ is better than most organizations manage with their early 3rd-round selections. The full class together, Fernando Mendoza, Tridon Stokes, Crone Crawford, Trey Zuther, Jamin McCoy, Mike Washington Jr., Dalton Johnson, Zeke Massey's, Malik Benson, Brandon Cleveland, 10 picks, 5 trades, a franchise quarterback finally in place, a secondary being built with versatile zone-capable players who have genuine pre-existing chemistry, offensive line depth for a team that suffered significantly from its absence last season, a running back who can complement Gianti and independently change games, a deep threat receiver whose fit with Mendoza's arm talent is specifically compelling, and a defensive tackle closing the class with legitimate value in round 7. My overall grade for the 2026 Las Vegas Raiders draft, A-. Not perfect, no draft ever is, but when the lowest single pick grade in your entire class is a C+, and that pick makes considerably more sense in full context than it did in isolation, and you come away without a single selection that qualifies as a genuine failure, that is a real win. That's the kind of draft that gets referenced in a few years as the class where things started turning in a different direction for this franchise.